everyone, Shalvi here from PodMed Adventures, and I'm glad you found our channel. We have a lot of content when it comes to pre-health or pre-med or pre-podiatry information, and we also have a lot of videos when it comes to current podiatric medical students. So if you like what we have and you want to follow our adventures, go ahead and subscribe to our channel. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you have any questions, put it in the comments and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. So today's video is actually a pre-recorded session that we had a couple of weeks ago about how to get into podiatric medical school. And the reason that we decided to do this was we got together with 8 other podiatric medical students and practicing physicians, because we wanted to help out and answer any questions that students have when it comes to this career pathway, what the application process is like, what our experiences were. And the goal for this was also to raise money for the Equal Justice Initiative in order to support the Black Lives Matter movement. So I'm happy to announce that together all of us were able to donate $160 to the Equal Justice Initiative. So we're very, very happy that we were able to all come together, spread the word, and help students out at the same time, and raise money for a good cause. So I hope you liked the video. Go ahead and let us know what you think in the comments and share if you thought it was helpful. Thank you.
And then went on to residency in New Jersey, and now I'm in private practice. And there is a whole world of opportunity out there for us as podiatrists, not only in terms of, you know, what we can do in terms of practice, whether it would be more surgical or more clinical. You can kind of pick and choose how much surgery you want to do or how much more wound care you want to do, et cetera. And then there's a whole nother entrepreneurial side of podiatry, which was also very attractive to me. So that in itself has opened up a whole new different world with the show, My Feet Are Killing Me. It premiered earlier this year. That's taken me on a total wild ride, which I'm totally enjoying. So that's kind of my spiel. I definitely think that podiatry has a lot to offer in terms of, you know, you being more specific to the field of podiatry in terms of surgery, business, entrepreneurship. All of those things are widely available, and I'm here to answer any of all of those questions you might have.
Thank you, Dr. Vincent. Dr. Tarr, would you like to continue?
All right, hello, my name is Dr. Sondema Tarr. I am a newly graduated resident, so I guess new attending as of 12 days ago. My path to podiatry is similar to Shalvi's and Ebonie's as well. Always wanted to be a doctor from the time I was 7 or 8. Went to undergrad at New York Institute of Technology in New York City. And I was told about podiatry from a friend in one of my classes. I think that was probably 4th year. We had, I think like most universities have like a pre-med group or club where different people will come and talk about different fields in medicine. He and a couple of other kids that I was previously taking classes with were at the New York School at the time. And that was the first time I heard about podiatry, but I kind of put it in the back of my mind and just moved on about life. I took probably 3 years off, so I was working, things like that, still kind of figuring out my path in medicine, and I thought about podiatry. So I shadowed a couple of podiatrists back home. I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, and really fell in love with the field, and then that's when I got serious and applied to school. Attended school at Kent State University in Cleveland, Ohio, graduated 2017. My residency was at University Hospitals, also in Cleveland, Ohio, and just graduated June 30th. So right now I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, getting ready to start practicing next month. So I'm really excited. The field of podiatry, again, like has been mentioned before, it's super diverse. And I think there is a good work-life balance. If that's what you want for yourself, it's definitely possible. It's definitely possible to have a fulfilling professional career, but at the same time have a family, to have different activities and things that you do outside of work. So I think for me, that was the most attractive part about podiatry. So I'm really blessed. I would say that I'm really blessed that I kind of ran this, you know, podiatric.
Thank you, Dr. Tarr. And for those who just joined, if you can please mute your mics while everyone is talking until we open the floor up. And as you get questions, put it in the question box, and then at the end, we'll definitely get to those. So next up, David, do you want to take the floor?
Yeah, sure. Hey guys, my name is David Chandra. I'm a 4th-year student at Kent State College of Podiatric Medicine. I went to undergrad at Michigan State University in East Lansing, Michigan, which is where home is for me. I've been in Cleveland, Ohio for the past 3 years. And kind of going off of why I chose podiatry, I didn't always want to be in the field of medicine. I came into it or thought about it during like high school, I would say. I always loved sports. Sports was something that was very big in my life, something that I enjoyed watching, something I enjoyed playing as well too. And I always thought I'd be like something in the NBA or whatever. But my career came short, and I looked into sports medicine, which was something that I was very interested in at that time because of that. And during undergrad, I took human biology as my major. And as I progressed through school, all I knew about was MD and DO initially. And then my dad actually goes to a podiatrist and has been going to one for the past 10 years. And I came in touch with him, and he started to tell me a little bit more about the subspecialties that are within podiatry. And when he said sports medicine, that clicked in my mind. And I also like the fact that it has its diversity, where you can see wound care, you can see regular patients, you can do sports medicine. And the aspect of surgery was very cool for me too. And when he told me all these things, it kind of lured me into the field of podiatry. And it's been great. The past 2 years have been good. I'm on my externships right now in 4th year and looking forward to starting residency in less than a year. So if anyone has any questions about externships, what to expect, what to look forward to, I can answer the best I can. I know this year it hasn't been what we were looking for, but we're making the best out of it, and it's been great. So, yep.
Thanks, David. Stephanie, do you want to go ahead?
Yes, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie, and I'm currently a 2nd year at Barry Podiatric Medicine. And I did my undergrad at UC Riverside in California. I'm born and raised in Chicago, so I transferred schools out there to California, and always wanted to do medicine. Kind of grew into sports medicine later on in my college life. And I also was a past athlete. I played volleyball in college for my first 2 years. So I kind of wanted to be in the realm of athletes and just doing something similar to that. So I did a master's at Barry beforehand, or before entering med school with them. And I shadowed one of the doctors here, and one of my professors in my master's program was actually a podiatrist as well. So that's how I kind of knew more about it. But I did apply for both MD and podiatry because I still was unsure about what I wanted to do, and just kind of got led to podiatry completely, and like saw that the path to doing sports medicine was a lot quicker and more sure, more certain. So that's why I picked podiatry. And I don't know, is there anything else? I think, yeah, I interviewed at 4 schools and got into all of them. So I have a kind of wide experience. I wasn't sure of how many to apply to, and just kind of my knowledge of podiatry was not as deep as the MD process. So applied to 4, got into it, but picked Barry specifically because of their MBA dual program with the DPM. So Yes, that's it.
All right, thanks, Stephanie. Tolu, do you want to go ahead?
Hi guys, I'm Tolu. I am currently a second year at Barry University School of Podiatric Medicine. So basically the reason why I chose podiatric was at a very young age, like really, really small. You know, like when you were younger, you asked for like toys and stuff. I was like, get me the Barbie doctor kit and stuff. So I really knew that as a young child, I wanted to be in the field of medicine. My dad is a cardiologist and he also has a specialty in family medicine. So at a very young age, I was able to shadow him and see like different things. So I knew exactly what I did not want to do and what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be in surgery. I just love being in the OR. Something about that just thrills me. And so I knew I wanted to work on lower extremity as well too. I did apply to MD and DO as well. I did apply to MD and DO as well, but the reason why I stuck with more podiatry because it was more of a guaranteed position with surgery. So that was the reason why I chose podiatric medicine. It was more of a guaranteed spot for me. The reason why I chose Barry is because I actually did a master's at Barry, and I really liked the close proximity, like how small it was and how they're very interactive they were with their students. I was born and raised in Miami, and I'm addicted to the Miami weather out here, so that was one of the reasons why I am at Barry University right now.
All right, thanks, Tolu. So we're gonna move on. We have a bunch of incoming students. So we're gonna go through, and again, just a reminder, just, you know, why did you choose podiatric medicine? Where did you do your undergrad? Where are you planning on going into podiatric med school? What was your pathway into finding podiatric medicine? And then what's your favorite part of the profession? So Trey, do you wanna start?
Sure. So my name's Treloara, but I go by Trey because that's a lot easier. So I just graduated Iona College in New Rochelle, New York. And I was a biology major. I always kind of was interested in science, but in terms of knowing I wanted to do medicine, I played Division I soccer there, so I knew sports medicine was something of interest to me, but I was actually looking into physical therapy before I found podiatry. And after shadowing, I kind of knew that that wasn't the right path for me. So I was talking to my advisor, the head of the biology department, to kind of figure out what shadowing experiences I could pursue. And my anatomy professor was actually the one who told me about podiatry. And she was like, you play soccer, what about podiatry? And I was like, what do you mean podiatry? I always thought, like, my mom's friend is actually a podiatrist, and I always thought that podiatrists had to go to MD or DO, and then you would specialize after that. And I looked into it, and it just seemed really interesting. And I, as a soccer player, always had an affinity to foot and ankle injuries myself. And that's kind of how my interest grew into like being interested in podiatry itself. So after looking into open houses and stuff and seeing what the field had to offer, it seemed really interesting to me. So I actually did 2 summer internships, the year before my senior year in college. And I knew the field was for me. I was taking the MCAT, and I knew that that's kind of the path I wanted to go down. So I'm going to New York College of Podiatric Medicine this fall. And the reason I chose it is primarily because of location and also my experience at the interview. I really enjoyed kind of the students that I was talking to and the professors that I was talking to. Everyone seemed really helpful and happy to be there. And so yeah, and I wanted to be near my family, and I live in Connecticut currently. So that's kind of why I chose NYCPM.
All right, thank you. Jimmie, do you want to go next?
Yes. Good afternoon. My name is Jimmie Lewis III. I graduated from Prairie View A&M University, HBCU. My pathway to podiatric medicine. I want to be a physician since a little kid. My father is an MD, internal medicine doctor. So we also share the same name. As you can see, I'm the third. He's a junior. So all since growing up, I've been trying to continue the legacy of my father. So all through my life and then going to college, I've only known like the MD-DO route. And a lot of college advisors don't talk about podiatry. So I found out about podiatry because Kent State School of Podiatric Medicine. They are very big on social media, and they sent emails, I guess from the MCAT database. They were sending emails to the different candidates who took the MCAT. So I received I received an email from Kent State, and I asked my father first, what is podiatric medicine? Because I didn't know nothing about it. But in that email from Kent State, it explained that you will be working on the lower extremities, and you also have the potential to do surgery as well. I've always been interested in sports. Before I tore my ACL entering college, I was a D1 athlete at a lot of offers at different schools, but since I tore my ACL, those offers went away. But that was one of my interests, sports medicine. So knowing that you could be a sports medicine podiatrist and do surgery, that was very interesting to me, knowing that I've always been interested in orthopedics since I've been growing up and playing sports. But then after doing my research on podiatry, I then started shadowing podiatrists, and that's when I fell in love with the DPM programs, because podiatrists, compared to the other doctors, they were very down to earth. They treated every patient like their family, and I just fell in love with me because I'm very outgoing. So just being able to communicate with my patients, that's what I became. Dr. Ebonie, I saw the show, My Feet Are Killing Me, and then I was like, yeah, this is what I exactly wanted to go into, and that's my pathway into medicine. And I chose Barry because I have twin sons, and being for Texas, I heard there's a podiatry school coming in the upcoming years in Texas, but that's not going to benefit me. But Barry's the closest to the South. It's like a couple states next to Texas. So being that Texas is close to my family, and also the weather is the same as Texas, basically, I fell in love with Barry. I actually met Tolu on my interview. So that was very interesting, and being able to see her on this call is nice as well. And that's why I chose Barry, and that's why I fell in love with podiatry as well.
Thanks, Jimmie. So last but not least, Jackie, do you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm an incoming student at Scholl. I did my undergrad at Milligan College, a small college in East Tennessee. And ever since I was little, I wanted to be a doctor, but like everybody else, just MD, DO. And I actually took 2 gap years. And then I did my master's in biomedical sciences at Liberty University. And that's when I actually got introduced to podiatry by 2 of my colleagues. One of them is actually a 3rd year at Scholl, and the other one is a 3rd year at Barry. And also our anatomy professor in our master's program, he was a podiatrist. So I got introduced to it, but I wasn't sure if it was for me. Then my friends really pushed me. They're like, Jackie, you're gonna like it. So I ended up shadowing, and it turned out I really enjoyed it. And I just liked, kind of like everybody else, the diversity in it, and I want to have a family. So this gives me the opportunity. And I also really like the fact that you graduate as a surgeon. So going into that, then I took 2 more gap years. I worked as a microbiologist, and then I just perfected my application, and that's what happened. And I ended up choosing Scholl because when I was at the interview, I just knew that I was gonna choose this school. I guess it was the environment, and also when I spoke to the professors, I felt at home, and that to me is important. I want to be able to feel at home where I'm going to study and, with my colleagues and all of that. So mine was a little short and sweet, but that's basically how I ended up choosing podiatry. I had like everybody else, well, a lot of people, I didn't know about the field, and I got exposed to it really late in my career.
All right, thank you everyone. So now that we've all kind of introduced ourselves, I'm gonna do a quick presentation about what the application process looks like and what the different pieces are. And then we're gonna jump into questions. So, all right. go to the beginning. Okay, so what is podiatric medicine? So we've done a lot about, you know, some people have touched on the fact that we are a separate school. So there's MD, there's DO, and then there's DPM. But as far as the length of time goes, it's still 4 years of medical school. Our residency is 3 years. And then there's an optional fellowship that you can do that's a year long. And the fellowship is more further specialization in whatever it is that you want to do. So within podiatric medicine, even though it is its own specialty and we focus on the foot and the ankle and the lower extremities, you do have different subspecialties, like people have mentioned, like you can do reconstructive surgery, there's sports medicine, wound care is huge. So those are just a couple out there, but there's a lot that you can do. So this is kind of a comparison between allopathic, osteopathic, and podiatric medicine. So each one kind of has its own breakdown, its own centralized application system. We kind of are like the hidden gem here. So if you look at it, there's not really a lot of applicants, probably because a lot of people just don't know about it. So because of that, we have the luxury of, you know, the GPA and the MCAT being, this is kind of older stats here, but it's around a 3.2, 3.0 average GPA, and your science GPA is around there too. And then the average MCAT I'll go over later, but these numbers are back in 2015. So obviously these have kind of gone up, but ours have stayed pretty constant because of the fact that, you know, we don't really have a lot of applicants. So there's a bit of an advantage there. And as far as the different schools, there's only 9 podiatric medical schools across the country. And like Jimmie said, there is one opening up in Texas in the near future, but for y'all, if you're thinking about applying next year or the year after, it probably won't be open until then. So the people on here, we're all from different schools. There's only a couple that we're missing, but it's very easy to reach out to those admissions representatives to see if you can get more information about the school, and you can go directly on their websites. So as you can see, there's a lot more on the East Coast than there is on the West Coast. And there's also more prevalence of podiatrists in those areas. So when it comes to applying, you're going to use the centralized application system through the American Association of Colleges of Podiatric Medicine. So I have the website listed there, and then I'll also send this presentation out to all of you so you have it. And when you're applying, you're going to click on this section right here, and it'll take you directly to the application system. And you're going to be able to apply to all 9 through here. You just select which ones you want to apply to. So as far as the different things that you're going to need to apply, you have to make sure that you have the prereq courses completed. You do have to take the MCAT, so you can't get out of that one if you decide to go into podiatric medicine. The personal statement is 4,500 characters, and then the experiences are 700 characters. You do want to submit letters of recommendation, and I kind of broke down how they are accepting those letters of recommendation. So you can use that. You can use Interfolio or virtual evals, depending on the school. And you want to make sure that you have at least 1 letter from a podiatrist. It's not required, but a lot of schools do recommend it. So as far as prerequisites go, most of the schools are going to require a year of general chemistry, a year of general biology, a year of organic chemistry, a year of physics. And then English, it differs depending on the school. So I know at my school, it's a full year. So just look at the schools to see what their requirements are. Some of them might be 1 semester, some of them might be a full year. So look into that. And then some schools might also recommend other courses, but as long as you have the required courses, you are good to go. So there's a little bit more about, you know, the different courses that are recommended, but again, these aren't required. So the average MCAT, it's around a 495 to 497. The more you have, the better. The higher you are, the better. There's tons of scholarships that are available. So there's a huge advantage. You know, the earlier you apply, The application cycle is a rolling admissions or on a rolling admissions basis. So the earlier you apply, the more spots that there are available, and then the more scholarships there are available. So we also put down, you know, when's the last MCAT date that they'll accept. So for a lot of schools, it is June, but Barry and the Midwestern school, it is a little bit earlier. So keep that in mind if you are deciding to apply to any of those schools. And then your personal statement is a really big part of your application. So be sure to get help from, you know, someone who knows you very well, someone who can speak to your experiences and know who you are, and then someone who doesn't know you so they can read the statement and really give you good advice about, okay, this is a feel that I got from that. So you really know, you know, if someone's looking at your application and they don't know you, which is going to be 100% the case, you want to make sure that it's giving off whatever it is that you want to show. So I have a couple of tips on here that you guys can read through later, but try to keep it personal and about your own stories, and tie it with stuff that you have done instead of talking about like a family member or a patient and focusing too much on that. As far as experiences go, there are so many different things that you can do. So it's still medicine. It doesn't all have to be related to the foot and ankle. So here are just a couple of things that you could do. There's health-related internships, there's student-run clinics, there's hospice care, there's scribing, being a home health aide. We do know that right now it's really hard to find some of these things. So, so we can each, you know, later talk a little bit more about advice as far as reaching out to get those experiences. So, you know, one way if you're looking to find podiatrists to shadow, there is the DPM Mentor Network. So you can go into stepintopodiatry.com, and they are aware of, you know, what's happening with COVID. So they have a list of podiatrists that are already open to having students come in, and they're registered as a mentor on this website. So this is a really easy way to kind of find people. But you can also reach out to different podiatrists and take it on like a case-by-case basis. So call them, see if they're allowing patients to come in to shadow, see if you can sit in on telemedicine visits. But yeah, it's all case-by-case, and we're all kind of trying to see how we can get those shadowing experiences. And as far as hours go, there's no minimum amount of hours that you have to have when it comes to shadowing, as long as you've done enough to get an idea of what the profession is about. That's kind of the main point. So now we're just gonna jump into the questions that you all had submitted, so we can start answering those. Get out of here. So one question that someone submitted, and this is for all of us, so whoever wants to take the floor first, it's, what advice do you have for someone new to the field of podiatric medicine?
I guess I'll jump in. So for me, shadowing was really profound. Even though, like I said in my story earlier, I knew people that I went to school with that were in podiatrics medical school, it didn't really hit me, the scope of practice that podiatrists have, until I started shadowing. It was a completely different realm of awareness that I had pre-shadowing and then post-shadowing. And that's when I finally made the decision to apply to podiatry school. So I would say, even though, you know, again, it's hard because of COVID and everything going on in the world, some podiatrists are apprehensive, I think, to have additional people within their office. But I know personally, just completing residency, a lot of my attendings were still allowing students to be in their offices. I actually had a girl on Instagram message me, I want to say this was March, late March, early April, asking about potential shadowing opportunities. Not so much of myself, because as a resident, we can't really have people shadow with us. It was just with the attendings I was with. And I gave her the information of some of the attendings that I was rotating with at the time, and they were more than happy to take her on, even though, you know, we were very particular about patients that we were taking in, even staff that we were allowing in at the time. So I think it's harder now for sure to get those shadowing opportunities, but at the same time, attendings know that those shadowing opportunities are vital. So I think they are more than willing to help. So again, put yourself out there, email. You might have to reach out to more people to get maybe 1 or 2 that agree to take you on, but it's so important for your career for sure.
To add a little bit to Dr. Tarr's, I would also say you could reach out to the schools. Since it is such a small community, I feel like the schools are very receptive to emails and just speaking with other students, especially students that are eager to find out more about podiatry. So don't be afraid to email the schools with the admissions, or they have even if you find Instagram is another way to reach out, just to find sources and get more information on how to get get linked up or get connected with other podiatrists or podiatry schools.
I would say first you should check out Dr. Ebonie's show, because if you compare it to other like MDDOs, they have examples like Dr. Miami, Dr. Pimple Popper. So they already know what they're getting themselves involved into. But podiatry, there's not really many shows out there. So if you want to see a fine example of what's going on in the day of a podiatrist, I think you should first check out her show. But then you should also follow all of our social media handles. And you need to stay connected with current students or current doctors. You can reach out to those people's social media networks, and they can give you more a personal perspective on what they're going through. And then finally, like Stephanie said, reach out to the schools and find out their admission requirements, and also get a personal tour once all this COVID stuff ends.
Thanks. I would just want to add that it's better if you shadow multiple podiatrists. I know sometimes if you just shadow one person who specifically does something you don't like, that's going to be your experience. Like, oh, I hate podiatry, but there's so much variety to our field that if you were to shadow 2 or 3, even 4 maybe, that you would get a better idea of what all is the field of podiatry. What people see on the show is a lot more of the more extreme things, but then also what's not shown on the show is more of, the more interesting things that you can't see, but are definitely something to do that benefits your patient base. Like, we haven't seen any type of tendon repairs or ligament repairs, or you probably won't see that on the show because it's not exciting visually, but those are the kinds of things that we're dealing with on a daily basis that do have a surgical fix that could be interesting to people who want to practice on a day-to-day basis of podiatry. So my advice would just be to not just shadow one podiatrist, because that one experience you might have could be your deterring factor from the field, but just kind of, get a good review of a bunch of different experiences.
To add to Dr. Ebonie, I know one of our one of the podiatrists at our school, and the professor, he did mention that, because I personally shadowed a sports like the Miami Heat, so that was really exciting. But they want you to see a normal podiatrist. So with shadowing different ones, you can have the dream job one, and then you also want to have one that's like the average lifestyle of a podiatrist too, since it does vary, but you want someone that is in a practice, or some of them might have a practice and a hospital. So kind of get the different perspectives of podiatrists. And that's it.
Yeah. So thank you all for giving your input on that. And that's so true, because I know the podiatrist I shadowed, there was a mix of a bunch of different things that he did. So he had, this is why I was I fell in love with the flexibility. He was in private practice 2 days a week. He was in the OR 2 days a week. And then he did on-call once a month. And then every other month he would go to a nursing home and work with the elderly patients there. So I was just like, oh my goodness, you're able to do all of these different things. And he would go on vacation, and he had 6 kids. And I was just like, do you make it to all their stuff? are you happy? And it just all worked out. So definitely shadow more than one person, because it's going to be different for every podiatrist that you shadow, and they somehow make it all work, and they're all happy. So I scribed in the ER, and I was just like, I saw a podiatrist come in and he had like all the surgical gear on, and I was like, what is he doing? And he was a podiatrist. So I mean, there's all kinds of things that you come across. So the next question, people are putting questions in the box, and so they had submitted this earlier. So I'm gonna get to those first so that we're mindful of everyone's time. So someone asked, any advice on studying in medical school? So for those current students, David, Stephanie, Tolu, and I'll go at the end. Someone want to take the floor?
Like, current advice I would give you is, how should I start this off? So basically, you're gonna want to know everything. As crazy as that sounds, you're gonna be like, I have to know everything, but you also have to be mindful you're not a robot. You're a human person. And at the same time, I think what I tell people is that remember who you were before you came into medical school, because that's not going to change. You know, you're just going to have to set that medical school is your priority now. So for me, I'm a super duper duper social person before I started medical school. I love to go out. I love to hang out with friends and mingle. But it's kind of like once I started medical school, I had to tone that down, but I still create time to go out. So that's one of my de-stressors I deal with studying. Time management is a huge thing. I'm telling you, time flies by like this when you're in school. I'm like, oh my gosh, I wake up in the morning and I'm like, oh, it's already 12, like half the day is gone. So time management is a huge thing. Plan your time effectively, start early in the morning. I think that's how I feel like 24 hours is enough, because I always say that 24 hours is never enough. But I wake up early in the morning, I work out, and then I just kind of like start studying little by little. Pace yourself, but don't go crazy, because honestly, you can lose your mind while studying for this, because it is medical school. Like people think, oh, because you're studying podiatry, it's no, you're in medical school. You're taking the same classes as MD and DO students. So just always remember time management. Do create time and take breaks, because your brain does get tired and it's not a machine. So that's my advice.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I agree with the same. A lot of school was about compartmentalizing. Especially when you're in your first year, you have to find that transition into school, and it's very tough. So you're gonna make mistakes, you're gonna learn from your mistakes, and you're gonna find out what type of student you are. And I think that was a process that I went through as well, because I took a year off in between, and in the year off I was working, so I wasn't necessarily in classes, so it was kind of difficult when I came in. But I think the group of friends that you make, because a lot of people study in groups, especially when it comes to anatomy and classes like that. And at the same time, going back to what we were saying before, time management is very big during school. And most importantly, whoever you are out of school is very important too, because you want to be able to be sane during your school, during studying, whatever it is that like kind of takes you away from school, do it. You know, for me, I lived in Ohio, which is about 2.5 hours away from home. So whenever I felt like I wanted to come home, I used to come home, because it got me away from school. It took me away from the stresses. I know it's not always possible for everyone else, because you live far away and all those different type of things. But whatever it is that you like to do, a hobby that you like or that you enjoy, you know, make sure you do it. You continue to do it while you're going through school, because it's very important to find that balance. And if you don't have it, you end up getting lost in all the paperwork and all the studying and all the exams and the grades and everything that is thrown at you during your first year. And as you go on, you find who you are. And once you find out who you are, you end up developing, and you get better and better, and everything becomes a little bit more smoother and a little bit easier than it was when you first stepped into the door. So being a fourth year, I'm happy the exams are done for the current moment. I know I still have my part 2 that's coming up in January, but that's the best advice I can give, is that you should have a balance between your schoolwork and your own life, and make sure you enjoy that and enjoy the process during school as well too, because it's definitely worth it if you have a little bit of both.
And my advice about with studying in medical school is, like Tolu and David said, balance is important. I also recommend like having a to-do list. So if you have exams, because your exams do come very, very rapidly. We have 3, 4 every week. So you have to make sure that you have your checklist, and just making sure that you are able to cross something out and get through everything. But you also don't want to stress on being too detail organized, because you want to be able to understand it, because the material does come back again in future classes over and over again. So just make sure that you're organized, and you will have to also learn how to study with groups, or at least find a study partner, right? As soon as you get in, find someone who studies the same way as you and does just has the same kind of level of great, like what you guys want in like your grades, or what you guys are both aiming for, so you guys could study together and efficiently. If you have a group that isn't contributing to your studies, feelings, you want to kind of just pull your feelings aside and pull away and find a new study group. So it is a lot of auto-correcting and like figuring out what fits you best, and every semester is different. So you will have to keep adjusting each semester, but just make sure, like they said, do balance and don't kill yourself through school, because it is very stressful, and you just want to be able to know that this is a big part of your life, but you don't want it to take away your life ultimately. So just be smart with ways to de-stress while studying as well.
Yeah, one other thing. Sorry. Yeah, one other thing I wanted to add was always lean on your upperclassmen. A lot of times when you walk in, it's very tough and you feel like you're by yourself. If you came into a new setting or a new school, a new city, you can always rely on your upperclassmen. They'll be willing to help. I know at Kent State especially, we had a big little process where like we would get a second year who's our big, and they would pass down the notes that they've got previously. So always look up to the upperclassmen and ask them questions and ask them how to navigate through school. And the professors too have open door policies, and you can always reach out to them in terms of studying and how you should approach their class and everything like that. So take advantage of resources the school provides for you as well throughout your journey in podiatry school. So.
One thing that I did like about Kent as well, which I'm sure all the other podiatry schools do it, that after classes, usually first year class starts at 8, if I'm not mistaken, and we would start or stop around 4 o'clock. But after 4 o'clock, they had review sessions. So especially that first semester, you're taking things like general anatomy, you're taking genetics, you're taking microbiology, and the upperclassmen would hold review sessions after all of the formal classes were taken. And the review sessions landed on different days so that they didn't really overlap too much. So maybe one day was anatomy, and you would go to the anatomy lab with a couple second, third years, maybe fourth years, and they would point out certain structures on the cadavers. You would go through all the classes. And I recommend, if your school has that option or you end up at Kent, definitely go. It's not a remedial thing. When people often talk about like, oh, after school tutoring, it's always made to be a remedial thing. But I feel like once you get to this point, the more that you're exposing yourself to the information, it's only for your benefit. And I know at Kent especially, at least 25% of our class was at those after hours tutorials. It was the top of the class. It was the kid. It was everybody. So I think being able to expose yourself to the information as much as possible is so vital. So I would recommend definitely going to those, because the upperclassmen would give you study tips. Like, it was super, super helpful. They would break down things in a way to just make it more digestible. And maybe, you feel a little bit of apprehension asking in a lecture hall. Kent is a huge school, so there was 100 of us in one class at one time, raising your hand in front of 100 other people. But in a group of 25 to 30 or even smaller than that, you feel more inclined to ask more questions. So definitely go to those, especially my first year. I think I went to a majority of them, and it helped me out a lot. So
I agree. I think the biggest thing, so I'm going to sprinkle in like, a little bit of, why. So I decided to go to the school I went to because the class size was so small. So it's about 48 students there. And it's so true. Like, when there's less students there, you just feel more comfortable asking questions. And I did my undergrad at UC Davis. So it was like 300 students per lecture hall. So I would never ask questions, and no one would ever notice if you were there or not there. So I was usually not there. But little things like that. And I think tips for studying in medical school, to not repeat, time management is huge, and definitely take breaks. I think I would celebrate after I would take an exam, just even going out to eat with other people in your class or whoever you study with. That was, celebrate those little wins, because it's a huge win, because you're studying and you just feel like that's your only life, and you do forget who you are at some points. But that kind of brings you back into reality. And another thing that I learned was changing it up if it's not working. So I think in undergrad, I kept that same study technique no matter what class I was in. And very quickly, during my first year, first semester, you learn very quickly that doesn't work. So the way you study for anatomy is not going to be how you study for physiology or immunology. It's completely different. So change up your study styles. Don't be afraid to change something if it's not working. Don't wait for the first exam to make that change. Reach out to people to see what's working for them. Reach out to upperclassmen because they've been in your shoes. So another question that someone had was, what's your opinion on applying before you take the MCAT? I have a later test date, but I want to get my application in as soon as possible. So the application is open right now, but it actually closed. So they're only doing interviews now, and it's going to open back up August 1st for next fall. And it's completely fine. I don't know if someone wants to talk about when they took their MCAT and when they applied, but it's totally fine to apply before you have your MCAT score in. What the school will do is, what my school does is they just put your application on hold until they get your MCAT score in. So you submit your application, they'll even interview you, and then you're just on hold until your MCAT score comes in. And as long as you have that MCAT score in by whatever month they have for that application year, then you're good to go. I don't know if someone wants to add on.
Well, I just want to add, Barry is the same as Samuel Merritt. They'll put you on a provisionary. They'll accept you. If you get accepted, you'll be provisionary until you take the MCAT. I think that's what it's called when you're not fully accepted.
Yeah, I think that's another important thing for podiatry schools, applying for podiatry schools compared to like MD and DO interviews. Like those schools, you're not going to give you an interview until you have your MCAT score and until your application is completed. But podiatry, like Stephanie said, they'll give you a provisional acceptance and interview, if you haven't taken your MCAT yet. But I also say if you haven't, you can apply early, but you should only apply if you are confident in your test scores on whatever practice tests you have taken so far. Because I know some students during my undergrad, they wanted to go to medical school so bad, would apply. Their MCAT scores or practice scores were nowhere near, med school acceptance ready, and they would just waste their application money. Applications aren't cheap. So, I would say plus also podiatry school applications, they close in June compared to MD and DO programs. MD programs, I don't know what's going on because of the pandemic, but I know when I was applying MD and DO programs, applications closed in around like January and February. With podiatry, you have a whole extra 4 to 5 months. So, if you're confident about your test scores and your studying so far, I would go ahead and apply. But, if you're not ready to apply yet, keep on studying until you're ready to pay that money.
Yeah, go ahead.
So another thing I have to just quickly add is if you're worried about scholarship money running out and like wanting to apply earlier in the cycle, I would reach out to whatever school or schools plural you're interested in, because at least the enrollment teams that I've worked with at a few schools, they are very informative and they will talk to you, and them getting to know you and know that you're interested will also benefit you in the application process. So if that's kind of what you're interested or what you're worried about, then I would totally recommend reaching out to someone, because people are very friendly and they want to help you succeed, whether it's at your school or whether it's at their school or another school. So, yeah.
I just wanted to jump in really quickly. So we are at the 4 o'clock hour. So if anyone wants to leave or has to leave, feel free to. I don't want to keep anyone past their time. For those of you who want to stay and continue answering questions, we can do that and at least answer the questions that people have put in the box. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
if
so
anyone
going,
has any specific questions for me, I'm gonna have to be that one to skedaddle. But if not, I usually do a good job of answering direct messages on my Instagram. If anyone has anything specific, or if I get a lot of the same questions, I'll usually address it at some point on social media. So hopefully, if you have any questions, let me know.
There was one that someone had submitted specifically, and they said for Dr. Ebonie. So let me just read that one off to see if you can answer that one. So what was the hardest thing about being a Black woman in a field so heavily dominated by white males, and how did you overcome it? I'm a theater major studying with predominantly white students, and it's okay, but you can feel the lack of matter when people who look like you aren't really appreciated or showcased. It's hard, but I feel like that's why I should continue.
Yes, you should continue. Yes, it is hard. So I went to Des Moines University, and I was the only Black person that graduated out of my entire class. That means podiatry, DOs as well, master's class. So it is pretty lonely. I will say that. And it is difficult when you feel as though you can't really relate to somebody, or they can't relate to you on a cultural level. So I would say that what I did matriculating through school was I found a church home. That was something that was very, very essential for me. And then from there, I just kind of focused on my studies, and had a social life, had, school life. But essentially, when you're going through any type of higher education as a minority, unfortunately, our numbers are just not there. You're going to have to basically suck it up. And, it doesn't get any easier. You just get better at handling it. Because in residency, I was not only the only Black person, but I was the only female for, 2 out of the 3 years that I was in residency. So as women, you can't really decide which is worse, the sexism or the racism. So, it's not easy, no matter how, you spin it. You just sort of learn different ways to deal with it. And make sure that you're not blind to it. You have the responsibility as the only minority there to actually check things when things are wrong, are not right. And that in itself is a very difficult situation, because you still have to get your piece of paper. You know what I'm saying? So I myself am continuing to evolve in how I approach certain situations that come about. But the only alternative is to just not do that. So to that person who asked the question, absolutely, you need to forge ahead, continue to, fight the good fight. And then hopefully in years to come, we won't have this issue with diversity. We won't have this issue with, being the only person. So encouragement to you for being the only one in your drama program. I'm certain that you definitely bring a lot of flavor to, whatever your matriculation has been thus far. And you'll just learn how to handle it better. So
Thank you.
You're very welcome. All right, guys, thank you so much for putting this on. I think that this is a great initiative, and good luck to everybody on the panel. Good luck to all the students who are thinking about podiatry. I don't think it's a bad way to go. You guys can have a great life and a great time with podiatry. So make sure you guys all friend me on the panel, and I will answer any all questions in the future. Okay?
All right. Thank you. Bye.
All right, you're very welcome, guys. Take care. Bye.
All right. Does anyone want to add anything to the question that was previously asked? And then if not, we can continue with the questions.
yes, a quick thing I wanted to add to that whole application process is that for at least podiatry, when I was applying, it was a very comfortable process, because it was a rolling application. And like Jimmie said, applications don't close till June. So you have plenty of time. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to put an application in early and then, wait till, to take your MCAT after. You can always take your MCAT, take your time, and then apply. Talking about the scholarships too, even when I applied in the month of May, which was 1 month before the application cycle closed. But even then, schools were providing scholarships, and they were very open about those opportunities as well too, to get scholarships. So I think that because it's a rolling up process and everything like that, take your time, you know, make sure your application is good, make sure you've taken your MCAT, make sure you're prepared and you know what you're getting yourself into. And then I think that you'll feel more confident going into the application process as well. And when you go into interviews and everything like that, because you've come more organized as opposed to just kind of all over the place. So
to bounce off what he was saying, in general, you just want to be the best applicant. Like if you feel like your application, this is the best you can give, then that's when you should apply, just because that's going to roll off on you when you are interviewing, because as much as you are interviewing for the school also is deciding on who you are. You want to be confident going in. You don't want to feel like, oh my gosh, like I haven't done this, I haven't done that. That's going to rub off in your interview and people can pick up on that very easily. So I definitely feel like whenever you feel this is the best application I can give, there's nothing much better than what is on paper right now, then that's when you should apply. That's my opinion.
All right. So the next question was, do any of you work while in med school? No, my job is being a med student. The most I do is tutoring. You do get paid for tutoring. So that's probably the only work I do. And I wouldn't recommend trying to have a job and trying to be a full-time student in podiatry school. Yeah.
So with what Shalvi said, me and Stephanie actually do work. So outside of TAing, we do babysit on the side, but like Shalvi said, medical school will take over your life. So if you're not great at multitasking or like organizing your time very well, it can be very daunting on you. But the babysitting is a blessing in disguise because we do nights and most of the time the kids are asleep. So between me and Stephanie, we kind of trade off nights. Like one night she'll do and then another night I'll do. And you know, when the kids are sleeping, we're studying. So like I'll go over there, we'll start studying together, late nights and stuff. But I highly, highly recommend your first year do not work. Sorry, your GPA it's a big adjustment transitioning from whether you're coming from a master's, undergrad, whatever your route is. I just feel like first year should be like your priority should be school so that you can get the bearings and kind of know what works for you, what doesn't, because every semester is different. You're going to be adjusting every single semester to your classes. So once you have that, know what works for you, how you can study, what time you can study, whether you're a night owl or a morning person, then I can say if you can handle it, you can, but yeah, that's my advice.
And the TAing that they offer in Barry or at our school, I'm sure other schools have student TAs. It's always second year, so you're not able to do it your first year. You have to do it second year, and obviously you do have to get a good grade in that class, so you still do the interview process with them, and they make sure that you're able to handle it. So it's not recommended, but it is, some may do it. Babysitting is flexible. Flexible jobs are easier to work with. Yeah.
The most I did work-wise while I was in school, I did a TA too, for, I think it was physical assessment, but that was again second year. I don't think they allowed first years to really take on any type of like campus position at Kent. And then I also worked in the library as a library aide, but again, that works because you're studying while you're sitting in the library. So it's like people didn't really come up to you for anything. You just sat at the desk and studied. You would check out bones and things like that. You could check out FYI for the students that haven't started yet for anatomy and things like that, different models. But it was a very laid back job. Again, I studied like out of the 5 hours I was there, 4.5 hours I was studying. So, and especially during exam cycles, it's a good job to have because you're in the library with all the textbooks, with everything you need. It's quiet. So that would be the most that I recommend. I mean, I will say that I had some friends that were nurses prior to entering podiatry school. They kept their licenses active. So especially third and fourth year, when things class-wise slowed down, they would pick up a shift here and there at, you know, whichever hospital they were around. But that's not, that's an exception to the rule. I'll say that. So yeah, every now and again, you'll come across someone that will have some sort of outside job. But again, school is primary. So try and focus on that as best as you can. And yeah.
Yeah, one advice that I got from my upperclassmen when I came in was first year, just focus on your schooling, your grades, and everything that you have to take care of in classes. And then second year, you kind of branch out you join clubs or even work on campus. And at Kent State, especially, you have a lot of work study opportunities. Like Dr. Tarr said, you could work in the library. One of the things that I picked up was student ambassador. It was a lot of fun because you get to meet incoming students that are interviewing and things like that. So that was a fun experience. So you can even start that as your end of your first year at Kent State, and you get paid for that. And then you get tutoring, TA, lab assistant, all that in your second year and things like that. And I think in the beginning, it's all important about, focusing and laying that foundation for yourself for grades, and then kind of branching out and seeing if you're able to add more things, then definitely continue to add more things that which the university provides for you in terms of job opportunities on campus, and then see what fits best for you so that so your plate isn't overfilled with stuff.
All right, the next question is, did any of you ever think about going into orthopedics?
I can answer that first. So I had previously mentioned that I was interested in physical therapy. And when I realized that wasn't the route for me, orthopedics was the next thing, because obviously sports medicine was something that I was extremely interested in. So yes, I did think about that. And for me, because I played soccer in college, the foot and ankle was something I would have wanted to specialize in anyways. So when I found out podiatry was essentially offered the same thing or something very similar, that's kind of like how my route switched very quickly, and like the way of thinking of like how I would become a doctor in the career I wanted to pursue.
Yes, I agree. Like a lot of us as when we introduce ourselves, we're interested in like sports medicine, or probably were thinking of doing orthopedics until we found out about podiatry. The good thing is that with podiatry, you can still work. There's usually like a team of doctors, or the practice is always linked with a podiatrist. You might have an orthopedic group that has a podiatrist in the practice. So it's always good if you will be doing the same thing as an orthopedic, but you're just specialized in the lower leg. So it is very similar and you have that guarantee of doing surgery and working in that kind of realm. Compared to with orthopedics, it's still a matching process, and that is a high demand specialty, like as well as dermatology. So it's kind of like my fear was like, I might not get that, and am I fine to settle with something else? So that was like why I kind of was geared towards podiatry specifically.
Yeah, so it's that streamlined process. So with us, we start our specialty training from day one. So we already know what our specialty is, and that's why we all get the education to become a board certified surgeon at the end of our curriculum. Whether we choose to sit for those boards or not, it's up to you. Whether you choose to do surgery or not, it's up to you, but you get that training regardless, versus with the MD and DO route, you have to secure an orthopedic residency in order to get that. So it's going to be 4 years of med school, and then it's going to be like 5 years of residency. And then if you want to do the foot and ankle, you further specialize to do that. So instead of it being 7 years, which is what it is for us, it's like way more than that. So that's kind of how it is as far as like year wise. Another question that someone had was, for those that have a child or know of someone that has a young child while in podiatry school, how did you/them balance school with having a child? So one of my classmates has a 2-year-old, and he's now 3. And I don't know how she does it. She just manages her time extremely well. And that's how she's able to do it. She kind of breaks up time, and she's put aside, making sure that she's always there for bedtime for him, and there for all of those family events. And she's huge on like time management, and we're in the same clinic group. So she has the calendar, a Google calendar that she shares with all of us, with the exam dates, the midterms, the practicals are all on there. And that's kind of, at least looking at it from the outside, I don't know, Jimmie, if you're not in school yet, but I mean, you've gone to school and you've got 2 little ones. If anyone else wants to add to that, but I feel like time management is how she's able to do it. And she puts aside time for whatever it is that she wants to be there for her son. And she makes it happen. I don't know how, but props to
I
her.
wanted to bounce off of what Shalvi said. So before COVID happened, when we were in school, one of my lab group members for our gross anatomy lab, he has 2 kids. And he has a wife. Basically what he would do, because I would always ask him all the time how he does it, was that once we were done with classes, he would stay on campus till about 9, 10 o'clock in the library, or sometimes 11. And there was like a whole group of them as well, that they had like kids as well, and they will study together, and they would make sure that time was like efficient study time, because when they go home, they knew that there was no studying getting done because the kids were with the wife all day, so that he has to take over. So I know, and the wife wasn't working, so that kind of alleviated like his responsibility for the kids, but he still like spent time with the kids. So it's really time management, honestly. It really is.
One of my best friends in podiatry school and residency, she came in with a 1-year-old daughter, and she was a single mother as well. Time management is key. For sure, because our our class was so large. One thing that was really good, especially with her, the students, especially the male students that also had children that were in school, and maybe their wives were stay-at-home wives or things like that, they would watch her daughter while she was in class. So that kind of helped to alleviate the childcare in a sense. I know for her, she also did say, unfortunately, she had to take out additional loans just to cover childcare when people weren't available in our class to watch her daughter. And I think another thing to be mindful of too, especially going into the process with children, especially if, you know, perhaps you are a single parent as well, being mindful of externship programs and residencies as well, just because they vary so much on their workload and what they expect from you. And that's one thing that she would always ask me and talk to me about, to say like, okay, do you think this is feasible with a child? Have you heard of this program? Do you think they would be understanding? And I think, you know, it varies. Some people are just nice human beings, and they understand that you have another human being, another life to take care of, and they will, you know, make the schedule work for you or be understandable in that regard. And some programs, unfortunately, are not. So I think especially once you get to second, third year and you're starting to look at programs, just talk to people, reach out and see, you know, which programs would be better suited to someone with the family, and look into those more and investigate as well.
All right, so I'm gonna go for another 10 minutes until 4:30, and we'll answer as many questions as we can in that time. And then if you have further questions, feel free to follow us all, DM us any questions that you have. I know that, you know, everyone on here is very open to questions, and there's tons of social media accounts out there like Jimmie had mentioned. So reach out and get to know the field and get different people's input on it. So the next one is, how long did it take to hear back after submitting an application / interviews and all of that? So for me, I applied on Thanksgiving. So I remember it being a Thursday, and it was Thanksgiving, and I heard back that Monday. I started hearing back from schools. I didn't know, I applied to all 9 because I wasn't sure where I wanted to go. And I also wasn't aware. So I was, like I said, you know, MD, DO, and that's all I knew. And there's not much out there as far as like, you know, things to look out for. So I applied to all 9. In hindsight, I don't think you need to apply to all 9. It doesn't work how like MDs and DOs are, where it takes forever to hear back, and then there's secondaries. Like, there's nothing like that. There's no secondary applications. You just submit your primaries, and then you hear back for interviews very quickly. So I heard back Monday, like I said. They're really open. They'll send you dates about when they're available to have you come in. Some places will even offer accommodation. So insane. Like, you know, I was coming from California, and they're like, oh, you know, do you want a hotel for when you're staying overnight? And I was like, you guys offer all this stuff. So very different when it comes to the application process. And then you hear back within the week, whether or not you got accepted or not. And so it's a pretty smooth process, very fast, much faster than I was expecting. But something to keep in mind. So like I said, I applied to all 9. I interviewed at 3 places in like a chunk. So I interviewed at NYCPM, at Temple, and then at CSPM. And you needed to give your decision about whether or not you wanted to attend that school, depending on when you apply. But for me, it was within 2 weeks of interviewing. And that's something I wasn't aware of. So kind of keep that in mind, because I also had interviews scheduled at Kent and Des Moines and all these other schools, but I ended up just canceling that because I realized that I also found out that it was a good fit for me, that Samuel Merritt was a good fit for me. So it ended up working out in that sense. But like Trey was also saying, if you wanted to extend that, and if you wanted to let them know that, hey, you know, I do have a couple more interviews lined up and I may need more than 2 weeks, they are flexible with that, which I also didn't know. So there's tons of flexibility. Just communicate, you know, whatever it is that you want to communicate, and they'll work with you on a case-by-case basis. Yeah.
What helped me, oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. I just wanted to connect the question that, since he had it, there was another question, how did you decide how many schools to apply to? I was like, maybe we could just connect those. I saw you're answering that.
Yeah, so basically I applied to areas that I would be interested. So to me, I based it off of how close I wanted to be to family members or friends, just because I've lived away from home for so long, since I was 18. And it can be pretty lonely. So I based it off that, and also living expenses when I applied to schools. And so I applied to Barry just because I have family in Miami. I applied to Scholl because I have friends there. And then I applied to AC Pod just because it's close to Texas. So that's basically how I went about it. And also, I heard back pretty quickly when I applied as well. I applied really early in the cycle, not super early, but early. I applied in September, and I heard from the schools the following day. I got interview invites. So that to me was pretty great, just because I applied twice to podiatry school. The first time I applied, it was really late in the cycle. It was in March, and I got an interview invite like a week later. So it varies depending on how early or how late you apply, with my personal experience. And like I said, I picked the schools depending on living expenses and also being able to live close to somebody that I knew, just because being in school can be kind of lonely, and you kind of need that. Even though you meet friends and stuff, that was a little bit important to me, just knowing somebody, that I could reach out to.
So I can add in, so I applied pretty early this past cycle as well. I think I applied the beginning of September, and it took about a month to hear back from NYCPM, which is a lot longer than it was for you guys, but in terms of medical school, still seemed pretty quick. And I actually only applied to 2 schools to mention or talk about the other question that was asked. And I actually had done summer internships at both schools. So if you guys are still like kind of early on in like deciding process, like freshman, sophomore year of college, you should think about looking into those if you're interested in podiatry. So I did internships at Temple and NYCPM, and that kind of gave me a good glimpse of what it was like to be at that school. And I got to meet a lot of students and professors there. And I actually was able to interview at Temple during my internship there over the summer. So I heard back relatively quickly from them because I had already done my interview. But with NYCPM, it took a bit longer. But then after I had my interview, I think it was a week or so that I heard back from them in terms of my acceptance there and scholarship availability. So yeah.
You mentioned scholarship, and someone was also wanting to know a little bit more about scholarship. So do you want to take that on and then we can continue on?
Yeah, so I don't know about all the schools, obviously, but in terms of scholarship money available, it does differ between schools. So if you want to look online, they should have information about it. And if they don't, then that's something that, again, you can always ask an enrollment person at the individual school. But in terms of the two schools I applied to, NYCPM offers up to 50% scholarship, so 50% tuition. So the tuition there is, I think, around like 34. So you're essentially getting a semester free. And obviously there's different levels of that scholarship for individual students, but obviously the earlier you apply, the more accessible that money is to you. So, and then I think Temple offered, I think 14K was the maximum scholarship money that they gave. So it differs between schools, and the tuition also differs between schools depending on location and stuff. So NYCPM takes into account the fact that the cost of living in New York City is a lot more expensive than a lot of the other schools. So they kind of have I think they have the lowest tuition of all of the 9 schools to kind of counterbalance that, because they realize that we're students and we're taking out loans. So I just want to throw that out there. And if you guys want to touch upon scholarships at the other schools, then.
Yeah, I can add to the scholarships. I know that most of them are merit-based and like based on your MCAT. So initially, I know podiatry school does give a lot of scholarships compared to like medical schools in general. So that's a good thing about podiatry. Based on like the places I interviewed at, I did Western, Samuel Merritt, Temple, and Barry. And I got the most from Barry. So it kind of like, I think it depends on the person and like when you apply, because each of them have a pot in a way. And the thing I liked about Barry is that it was guaranteed every year, but Temple offered the scholarship, and it was based on what they got that year, and it changed every year. So it was also good. But they were like the second highest to give me a scholarship, or the value was the second highest, if I'm saying that right. And but Western, and they all offered scholarships. It's just the amount, it depends, and like how you weigh out with living expenses as well. So I'm not sure about the other schools, but you really do have opportunity, especially if you do really well on the MCAT and your overall GPA is good, then you most likely will get a scholarship. And don't be afraid to ask them during interviews as well. So, but you most likely will know about it when you get your acceptance. I know that's when I found out about scholarship money within the school. And then I'm sure there are outside scholarships, but I know for us being in school, we weren't able to apply for scholarships till second year. Second and third year is when you're able to start applying for scholarships within podiatry. So.
Yeah, so at Kent State, it's all about merit as well too. Like I said, I applied later in the cycle, which was in May. So I started in 2017, August, and I had applied in the beginning of May of 2017. So at that point in time, they still had opportunities for scholarship. It was just not the original amount that could have been offered had I applied even earlier, but they still had scholarship opportunities, and it was based off of your MCAT and your GPA. So I'm not sure if it exactly changed in the past 3 years. That's something that the financial coordinator at the school has more information of, which you always can reach out to at all the 9 schools. But when I was going, it was like 10,000, then 5,000, then 3,000. And that was what the number range was, like the monetary value. And then going off of the question that Emily had in there too, the earlier you apply, the better off you are, because you know ahead of time and you can kind of start the process much sooner. But like I said, as long as you're comfortable and you know your application is ready to go, that's when you should apply. Don't ever like go ahead of yourself too early, just because of, problems that you might run in the way with not having something that the school requires, or you only have part of the application. I think scholarship is very important, and I think that's very useful in our, especially related to the finances that we go through during school, because a lot of us are on loans and take loans and everything like that. But like I said, it's always better based off of your organization. If your scores are good, you're obviously going to be, by your merit, you're going to get the scholarship that you deserve. And at Kent State, during your second year, you can keep maintaining that scholarship, but I think then it's more based off of how your ranking is in the class. I think the top 20%, I believe, or so. So if you're within that range, you can continue to keep your scholarship. If not, you end up losing it. But especially during your first year, which is your crucial year of, getting everything together, like everyone was saying earlier, that podiatry school definitely provides financial help through those scholarships in many ways. So yeah, so that's from the Kent perspective.
And with
There's also, sorry, Stephanie, you want to go ahead?
I just want to say with what David said, you do, once you get that scholarship, since it is merit-based, you do have to keep, it's easy to lose it because you have to keep a certain GPA as well. So that's also something to make sure you think about as well.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close out today's webinar. So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to all of the guests who came on to provide their insight and their experiences and all of their advice. I do want to give everyone an opportunity to kind of give your closing remarks. So Dr. Tarr, if you want to start.
Just wanted to thank everyone for being here today. Podiatry by far, like I said again, has probably been the best life decision that I've made. So honestly, I'm excited for all of you, the students that were on the panel or are on the panel, the people that are asking questions, the prospective students. It's something that I will never regret, honestly. And I'm just excited for myself personally to see, especially this next phase of my professional career, being an attending now. That's so weird to say where this takes me, but you're all in the right place. Know that you're making the right decision. Know that you'll come out and the world will be in front of you. You know, the world will be in front of you in the most beautiful way, and it'll be up to you to decide what you want to do with this. And the sky's the limit. So I'm just super excited, and thank you, Shalvi, for putting this together, and thanks for everyone for being on the panel. This was great. I love this. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, Dr. Tarr. David, do you want to go ahead next?
For sure. Thank you, Shalvi, for having me on here. It was a pleasure to come on and share kind of how I chose podiatry. And, you know, it's been a pleasure to meet all of you. I don't think I've met all of you except Jimmie. I met Jimmie just a week ago because he was on the podcast and we had him as a guest. So that's when I got to know him. But it was a pleasure to get to know all of you guys. And to those who are deciding whether to come into podiatry school or not, I'm a fourth year right now, and it's been worth the entire journey thus far. I'm looking forward to where my future takes me, whichever residency that might be. So continue asking questions. You know, you can always reach out to us through our social media. You can always, you know, reach out to the schools wherever they are, and they'll be able to give you any advice, answer your questions the best that they can. And I know it was the same for me. I know I didn't get a chance to say this earlier, but the two schools I applied to at Scholl and Kent, the academic, the student affairs, the people who are in the administration really made a big difference in me even applying to podiatry school in the first place. I know I shadowed, I know I did all of mine, what I needed to do. But when I spoke to the schools, they were so encouraging. They pushed me into applying, and here I am now 3 years later. And like I said, I don't regret it, and I'm looking forward to the future. And if you guys ever need student perspectives or their journeys or their experiences in the field of podiatry, why they chose it, you can always listen to the podcast. It's Sole Purpose. I started it recently, and Jimmie's episode is on there, and hopefully everyone on this panel can one day show up on there, and I would love to have them guest speak as well too. And for the prospective students, you know, take a look and listen to what you want to hear from these students and what their journey was, and maybe you can connect with one of them and maybe relate to one of their stories. So thank you guys. Thank you, Shalvi and PodMed Adventures, for giving us the opportunity to be on here today.
Thanks, David. Yeah, check out his podcast. It's called Sole Purpose, and the sole is like the sole of a shoe. So there's a lot of funny puns in our profession. So Tolu, do you want to continue with the closing remarks?
So I just want to say thank you so much, Shalvi, for having, Step Into Pod. You guys make sure to follow us on Instagram. I definitely do want to say podiatry school has its ups and downs. It's definitely a roller coaster ride. You will have your highs and your lows, but you definitely have to make sure to focus on the positives. Enjoy the process of applying. Enjoy the process of getting in. Enjoy your break before school starts, because once it starts, guys, and I say this with a big old smile, you have no life anymore. And it's a never-ending constant cycle. So I definitely do say please enjoy the breaks. even the breaks you get in between school when you start, enjoy it to the fullest. Because I'm telling you, once you start back, you're like, oh my gosh, I wish I was back. So that's what I have to say. But definitely enjoy the process. Make sure you are the best applicant when you are applying. There's nothing more better than to go into an interview confident within yourself that you are that best person on paper, because it will show in your behaviors, it will show in how you interact with people. And just reach out if you have any questions about a specific school. There's no such thing as a dumb question. I'm telling you, I'm sure if you have that question, 10 other people have the same question too. So make sure to reach out to each and every one of us on this panel. We're very responsive, even though our lives are crazy, but we'll try and get back to you in a timing manner, and enjoy it. I know 2020 is crazy with COVID, but still try and enjoy your time if you can.
Thanks, Tolu. Stephanie?
Sorry. I just want to say thank you so much, Shalvi, for having us, and we love the page and everything you're offering for podiatry. I just want to say that you all are so blessed to have like just the insight on podiatry, because that was something that wasn't there a few years ago. So just having the different perspectives, the different schools, all the schools are pretty similar. Is more what you feel like in regards to how they teach and how you'll be learning. It's all about where you feel comfortable, what they're in so many different types of regions and cities. So it's where you want to live, where you see yourself in the interview. So don't put too much stress on like, oh, if I don't go to this school, like they're all good. You're going to be fine. You're all going to make it. Podiatry is a small profession, so it's really good because everyone is kind of very supportive on making sure that you do complete it and get there. So I just want to say thank you guys for joining us, and we really had a good time sharing our stories, and we hope you will keep up with us. We're all pretty new pages, so if you have any insight or questions that you really want to know, just let us know, and we are here to help you. And even the ones starting, good luck, congratulations. And every step is something new. So like the 4th years, good luck with externships, David and Dr. Tarr. Good, congratulations. We can't wait to be in your shoes. So yes, thank you.
Soon enough.
And stay safe. Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you.
Not dying down, so we all know we have to be.
Thanks, Stephanie. Jackie, do you want to go ahead next?
Yes. First of all, I want to say, Shalvi, thank you so much. And actually, your page was one of the first ones that I looked at when I started following pod pages, just because I kind of like Trey, when I started going into the field, I didn't know much about it. So knowing that there were others out there putting, this field into, out there, because a lot of people don't know about it. So thank you so much. And thank you for having me. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to message me. I'm pretty upfront, like I'll tell you, my pathway, how I got into podiatry and all my struggles. I'm an open book. So, and I'm always here to help.
Thank you. Yeah, she's got a lot of good inspiration out there. She was a non-traditional student, so definitely give her a follow, and she's very open to answering any questions. Trey, do you want to go next?
Sure. So I don't want to repeat what everyone else kind of said, but thank you again for having me as a panelist, and thank you guys for tuning in and watching on a Sunday evening in the summer. Again, I am very responsive on social media at the moment because I haven't started school, but I plan to kind of show my journey on my page through medical school first year, and hopefully I can keep it up, and I'll try to. So again, feel free to DM me, and if you guys need help with your personal statement, I've been helping people edit their personal statements, and any application questions you guys have. I just went through that process, so I will, again, like Jackie said, like I will share and try to be as honest as I can with you about everything. So thank you, and have a good rest of your summer, guys.
Thanks, Trey. And yeah, definitely check out those internship programs. I did Temples, and it was a lot of fun. You get to see all those little things that happen. So it was cool kind of following Trey along her journey. And then when she was like, oh my God, I got into NYCPM, it was really cool. Jimmie, last but best for last, do you want to give your closing remarks?
I would like to thank you for inviting me on this panel. And I also like hearing the other perspectives of all the other guests. To the pre-med students, follow all the other guests' page because they each have very important journeys and different perspectives. Also, since this is a Black Lives Matter charity event, go to PodMed Charity and donate to the cause. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on in this world, so we need to continue to uplift our race. So please make a contribution to this charity event. Man, I would like to leave the pre-med students with a quote from LL Cool J. Stay focused, keep going towards your goals, and keep moving towards your goals. There's a lot of distractions in college. I know I was distracted for a little bit, but I got focused. So, you know, if you need any insights on my personal journey, I'll give you all the rundown, the struggles, the triumphs. And, you know, if you have any questions, you can follow me at j.lewis Podiatry, or, you know, you can reach out to the other pod Instagram pages as well.
All right. So yeah, like Jimmie mentioned, this kind of stemmed from wanting to help with the Black Lives Matter movement, and with the application process kind of starting and a lot of people having questions out there. I thought, you know, this might be a good way to kind of bring all of us together from different pieces in our journey or different places in our journeys, whether you're incoming or whether you just finished residency or whether you're out there practicing. So this wouldn't have been possible without all of you joining in and without all of the guests kind of providing their input. And I feel like we could have gone on for another 3 hours and there still would have been questions. So, I mean, if this works out and as there's more time, maybe we can do another one of these, because I thought it was really helpful. And I wish, you know, we had something like this when we were in school. So that's kind of how the PodMed Adventures page came about. And I did want to share with all of you where we kind of reached so far with the charity event donations. So this was all it was all donation based, and you didn't have to contribute if you couldn't, because we are mindful that you know, given the times right now, it's hard to kind of do that. But some people gave $5, some people gave $10. I mean, there were donations all over the place, and we're right now standing at $127, which is huge. So I'm really proud of all of us. And all of this money is going to go to the Equal Justice Initiative. So we're really excited to be able to do that. And again, thank you. Thank you all for joining us. Go ahead and give all of us a follow. I am going to be posting this on our YouTube channel. So if you haven't already, please subscribe and like and share the videos. I know Step Into Pod also has a YouTube channel, so check them out. Jimmie has a bunch of podiatry merchandise, so check him out. There's a lot of different stuff that's out there, and every page is kind of doing their own thing. David has his podcast. So yeah, we all are out there and we're all trying to help. So reach out to us if you have any more questions, and thank you again, everyone. Bye.